Today we are going to escape or learn how to. I mean, we're going to find out a little about magic, how to create, how to produce, direct with the incredible Dale Oprandy. Ta-da, Dale.
How are you, David?
I'm hanging in there. I'm doing pretty good. You?
Yeah, doing real good. Yeah, busy and doing well, thank God. Yeah.
Yes. And I see you're sitting there. It's in Inclusion Films.
Yeah, I'm here in my office at Inclusion Films.
Very nice.
And yep, we're doing, of course, our school right now is all on Zoom due to the pandemic that we're under right now. So I've got my art teacher, my scenic art teacher, doing an art direction class right now. So that way I can come and talk with you guys. And anyway, but things are going well on Zoom. They're still getting educated on Zoom, which is great. Thank God we have that, right? So.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
If we didn't, so.
Yeah, I guess we're all doing that. I mean, right, the week after we shut down, we right away, the next Monday, we said, okay, meeting, boom. And then a week later, we were up and running. So it's, I mean, I can't believe I've done 100 and probably almost 150 interviews.
Wow, since the pandemic?
Yes.
That's crazy, David. Wow, that's great though, man.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know what's crazy? It keeps me sane.
That's good, absolutely. I know, I'd go nuts imagine if we didn't have the Zoom classes. I mean, we had nothing going on. It would definitely make you insane.
Yeah. Well, we have 5 students today that are going to come on and learn from you, and I'm going to be throwing out questions too. And
okay.
And we'll just bring them on. Bring them on.
Bring them on.
Bring them on.
There they are.
Here we go. Yes, we got some wonderful. We have Natalie Oden, Ashley Anderson, Deanna Green, Nick Brode.
Hi, Nick.
Lons on Record.
Hey.
Yes.
All right, great bunch. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you guys. You all doing well, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys as well.
Yes, Dale's at Inclusion Films right now.
Yes, I'm in my office here at Inclusion Films, and which is run, of course, by my best friend, Joey Travolta.
Yeah.
And yes, Joey, you all know Joey, of course.
Yeah.
So I run Inclusion Films here in Bakersfield, and we actually have our Zoom classes going on right now. In the other room, we have my art direction teacher teaching art direction right now. Yeah. So they're on a project, and so thank God we're still able. I was telling David earlier, we're able to still educate everyone via Zoom, the film arts. So it's wonderful to be able to keep the school going during this pandemic.
Well, and it's thanks to Inclusion Films. Meet the Biz kept going a while ago for years. We used to do the Meet the Biz workshops at Inclusion Films.
Right, at the Burbank studio. I remember that, David. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So good.
Well, you do so many things. You're a producer, a director. You've been an actor, a stuntman, a magician. Do you have a favorite?
That's hard to say. That's like, who's your favorite child?
Right.
I loved it all. I started at a very young age. I became professional as a magician when I was 12 years old, and professional when you start getting paid for your art.
Yeah.
And so I started getting paid doing shows, and then got an agent when I was about 13, and booked me on larger scale projects and such. And then what happened for me, I wanted to find kind of a specialty in magic, and because there's tons and tons of magicians, but there are very few escape artists, and very, very few daredevil escape artists. So I'll kind of tell the little story here. So when we moved to Arizona for a few years from New Jersey, when my dad retired from the restaurant business in New Jersey in 1970, we kind of went west for a few years, went to Arizona. And my dad took myself, we were the youngest of 7 kids, to Beeline Dragway in Phoenix, Arizona to see Evel Knievel jump 16 semi-trucks. And I'm sitting in the stands of 25,000 people, and I'm watching this great showman that he was. And I'm said to myself, that's what I got to do. I've got to do my magic or my escapes in a daredevil type of situation. That's where you will get the major work, because there's very few people doing that. And so sure enough, about 5 years to the day, pretty much to the day, I was performing at Beeline Dragway, the same place for 25,000 people that I saw Evel Knievel 5 years before that perform. So my dream kind of came true. I was doing an escape from upside down from the helicopter, escaping from a straitjacket while the ropes holding me were on fire. And I had 2 minutes to get out before the ropes burned through. And that was my daredevil, like that, and the Houdini water torture cell, where they place you in a tank of water upside down, and you've got 2 minutes to get out. I could hold my breath for about 2 minutes, 10 seconds back then. And so that was my specialty, is daredevil escapes.
Wow. Now you have to have, shall I say, you have to have balls to do something like that. I mean, that takes, oh my God. I'm going, okay, I'll stay at home. How were you born with that, that energy?
Yeah, I had a lot of energy. I wasn't afraid of anything really. I had a cousin who's a stunt woman, and my cousin became the first female stunt coordinator in both film and television. She broke the ice for women in the business. So I always admired her, and she was fearless. So I kind of always was fearless. I'd hop on a motorcycle. As a kid, I remember, didn't really know how to ride a motorcycle, but I got on a dirt bike and just started racing around and riding. So I was never really afraid of trying things. And I'm lucky to be alive because of that. Because when I look back, I think, man, sometimes I took risks that were a little uncalculated. But as I became a professional in the business, I became a Houdini historian. I became very, I made sure that it was calculated. All my risks and all my stunts were calculated. Yeah. And I had to make sure I was going to be able to, to be alive, to have a family someday, which was important to me. And then once I did have a family, then I slowly retired from the daredevil aspect of the business and started directing and managing other daredevils and directing shows, magic shows and such.
Right. I'll get a question from one of our wonderful actors, performers here, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hi. Can you tell me a little more about your stunt work?
Yeah. So my stunt work, most of it was from hanging upside down from a crane, and very seldom from a helicopter, because that was a much more expensive task. Right. So they would put me in a straitjacket, which was, so if I don't know if some of you know what a straitjacket is, I'll explain it. It's a device whereby they use it generally for the criminally insane, and very few states actually are still using them, because they're very confined, they're very tight position. But if someone was criminally insane, they would put them in this canvas jacket with leather straps.
In fact, I wore it in the last big show. Remember when I was in prison, I was in a straitjacket on stage.
Oh, so they saw the show, then you had a straitjacket? Okay.
Yeah, well, everybody performed in it, and so it was.
Oh, perfect.
I happened to be the insane one.
Okay, so you know what that is then. And they would put me in the straitjacket, and they would buckle my ankles and to ropes, and they would light the ropes on fire, and they were real ropes. They didn't have metal cords inside them or anything. And they would take me up in the air. I went as high as 250 feet was the highest height I went, and I had to escape up in the aerial and that usually about 2 to 2.5 minutes to get out before the ropes would burn through. But I was very quick, and I was known as one of the fastest escape artists in the world for a time. I was also the youngest in the world at one time. And then I was the first ever, to this day, from what we know for sure, I believe to this day, hasn't been checked out in years. So that to escape from 4 straitjackets I don't really know. From what we know, no one's ever done that before. But I did it one time. Four
Straight
jackets once.
jacket, just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. So they would put one jacket on me, then they put another one over that, another one over that, another one over that, another one over that. So you're in a real confined, very tight position where really nothing can move in your body at all. And it's a very it's a very tough deal. It's when you get out of 4 straight jackets, especially, it's a very hot, very tight position to be in. But I was in very good shape in those days. I had to treat myself like an athlete. I had to go to the gym every day. I had to stay in good shape because you are an athlete in that business. If you stop, then your chances of not getting out are very, very high. So
what would you suggest to somebody who wanted to start a career as a stunt man or woman?
You really, first of all, become fit. That's important. I was, like I said, I was very fit back then. That's important. And being agile is important. If you really want to do stunts too, I would suggest taking acrobatics, because there's a lot of things you need to do in the stunt end of the business. My cousin, she was here right now. She would tell you that she did a lot of that. And in her end of the business, because she was very famous for motorcycles and also horses. She did a lot of Westerns with John Wayne. She actually was a stunt woman for Anne Margaret and all the John Wayne movies with Anne Margaret. She was her stunt double. So yeah, she would break her horses. They call it breaking your horse in the morning. And her and John Wayne would ride out on the desert early in the morning before the crew got there to break the horses in for the day. And she just loved John. John Wayne loved her. And he told my uncle Gino, who's a location manager for 20th Century Fox for years, I never seen a girl break a horse like your daughter in my life. He couldn't believe for a woman that she could do all these things, but she could stand on a horse while it was trotting. She would jump a horse. She jumped a horse over 2 cliffs in a TV commercial years ago that was aired for years. And she was the first woman actually the first person to take a motorcycle and glide it under a moving tractor trailer truck in a scene in the film. And so she was incredible. So it's it's taking a little bit, finding your specialty and then going with it. So if you want to be a stunt person, find what you're really good at and what your body can take and what you can, do to learn. A lot of times it's acrobatics can help you jump out of cars, fall out of cars, roll, especially if you have to jump off a cliff and roll, tuck and roll, all of that stuff. Not being afraid of heights is important. So getting over that fear too is important. So that's a good suggestion for someone on the stunts. Yeah.
Right. Now you said heights, and I thought of Mel Brooks. High anxiety.
Yes, that's right.
Ashley Anderson. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
And you have a question today for Dale.
Yeah, what's your question, Ashley?
What is your most
Say that one more time.
what is your
Most dangerous stunt?
Yeah.
Most dangerous stunt?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably the upside down aerial stunt. The water torture cell was pretty dangerous as well because you're upside down in a tank of water, and you locked in on the top. Your ankles are locked in these shackles, and you also have various pairs of handcuffs on as well. And that, when you're in an underwater situation where you can't breathe, that's tough, especially if you go and you're having trouble with the handcuffs. You got to get out of the handcuffs before you get to the rest of everything else to get out. So there were a couple of times that it was a close call. Underwater stuff. So I would say the underwater stuff I did. I also did straight jackets underwater and all. And when you're in that position where you're also confined, but you're also in in a whole different atmosphere, so to speak, because that makes it a little more dangerous. At least when you're upside down, you're up in the air, you can still breathe.
Ugh.
But when you're underwater, it's a whole different world.
And
So I would
that
say the
head,
underwater stuff was probably dangerous.
and all that blood rushes to your head.
Yes, that happens.
Now I know Ashley has another question too that's completely from a different part of your career.
Okay.
Where did I study with Lee Strasberg?
What was it like studying with Lee Strasberg?
Oh, Lee Strasberg was wonderful. He was a tough teacher, boy. You didn't mess around in his class, but I got to tell you, he was an amazing teacher. And the method technique truly worked for me. You know, I'm pretty familiar with all techniques, you know, Meisner, the classical, but the method really hit home. I think it was more believable for me as an actor and as a director to direct and helping, you know, other actors in a scene by using the method technique, especially if they have to cry and go to a place that you need real tears and real emotion, facial, you know, emotions and such. It worked. But as a teacher, he was incredible, and we learned a lot. He was tough, though. He really expected the best from you all the time. Well, I'll never forget. There was one time, me and a scene partner were going to do a scene from A Streetcar Named Desire, and that was, you know, to him, boy, oh boy, you better knock it out of the ballpark. And I didn't realize at the time, it was one of the first scenes before in his class that I had to do it. I thought, uh-oh. And everyone's telling me, man, are you sure you want to do that for him? That's a no-no. And it was tough. He laid into us pretty tough, you know, through that. And it went well, but there was a lot of adjustments and things that, you know, and that was something that you better be knock it out of the ballpark. And we got maybe a double or a triple. And we didn't knock it out of the park, but
Yeah, but that's why you're in class.
yeah, and that's part of that, and we learned a lot from it. And then, you know, we did things that were much lighter after that were a little bit easier to run by him. But he was incredible. His wife Anna was incredible as well. I got to study with her for a little while, and she was a real joy. And but we learned a lot from him. And what I also loved about Lee was when he would talk about, you know, Marilyn Monroe and James Dean, and I got to meet Al Pacino and hang out with him, you know, through Lee, because I went to their home many times for different events and such, and that was kind of cool. Anne Bancroft and I'm trying to remember the other. It'll come to me in a second. Oh God, she played the mom in The Exorcist. Yeah. Oh God.
It's okay. It's, you know.
Come to me. Ellen Burstyn. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was just a joy and a dear. And anyway, so it was a real great experience. Learned a lot about Marilyn Monroe, you know, of what kind of actor she was. You know, Hollywood made her into a sex symbol, but she truly had the depth and as an actor and the method technique. And that's why she needed Lee's wife to go on set quite often with her to help her through. You know, she had some emotional things going on, but bottom line is, you know, Lee always said Hollywood never allowed her to act. That was one of the things I remember. So we learned a lot about other actors that we admired, you know, growing up and such. So that was kind of a cool experience as well from Lee.
Well, I loved, you know, I was watching, of course, Carol the Bells, which we worked on together.
Yes.
When I saw you on the screen, you're just so, I mean, you have this presence as an actor. And I know you don't do it that much.
I don't do it that
much. but when you do, it's like, I want to see more of you.
Oh, thank you, David.
I saw that there's a movie coming out or a short film that you did a while ago that's coming out. Is that
which one was that? Do you remember the name?
Oh my God. You know, and I thought I wrote it down here, and you know, I'll bring it up in a minute or two, but okay. It looks like I can't wait to see this film that you did. Okay. But it's interesting that, you know, about making films, you could start a film and then 10 years later you're still wrapping it up.
True. We had the situation with Sal Mineo. You know, yeah. Joey and I bought the rights to Sal Mineo my God, it's oh boy, I want to say 20 some years now.
Right.
And we had one draft, a very high budgeted draft, if you will, and then we went back and did another draft, and I brought John Benjamin Martin. I don't know if you probably met John, a friend of ours that's a writer, and we brought him in to make it more of a streamlined script, low budget and so forth. And it's been a long process. It's a long process. Ralph Macchio, we're going to have him play Sal Mineo at the first time around when we were thinking of doing it way back when we first bought the rights to his.
Oh my God, he would have been great at that time.
He would have, yeah. He really wanted to do it, and it was funny because when we were sitting with Ralph and talking about the project and such, and he said, when I worked for Francis Coppola on The Outsiders, he says, when I came out of the trailer with my makeup and my hair slicked back, the first thing Francis Ford Coppola said to me was, "Oh my God, you look like Sal Mineo, kid." So I said, well, that's ironic. Here we're doing this. And at that time, we were hoping to do the project within that year, of the first, that first year that we got the rights and all. But yeah, sometimes these projects can sit on a shelf for a long time. I still have the rights. I still want to do it at some point. Ralph is too old now to do it, but bottom line is there's still, you still believe in a project and, make it happen at some point. So now after Carol the Bells, we got another project we want to do here soon. And then maybe, down the road, we can still get back to that. So never give up,
Right. De'Aaron.
De'Aaron.
I have a question.
Hi, De'Aaron.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm well.
Good.
What was the best movie that you ever directed?
Best movie I ever directed. Oh boy, we did a thing here a while back called Homeless. And if you get a chance to see it, we shot it here in Bakersfield. I interviewed over 100 homeless people. And wow, did I get an education. Oh boy, it was a real interesting education. And I really loved making that film because I brought some real homeless people into the movie as well at the beginning and the end of the film. But it told the story of what some of these homeless young adults go through. And it was really compelling. And each day it was quite a process. We shot at night. We had to shoot around a campfire. We made a homeless shanty town in our back lot that we had here in Bakersfield at that time. And we also replicated a miniature version of that because we had to burn it down. And what's wonderful about making a film in Bakersfield is our fire department here is wonderful. Our police department is wonderful. I needed all of them to help out with this project. And so we needed police cars in a scene. We needed a fire truck in a scene. And we had the fire chief come out and talk with us and our students about burning the shanty town down. And I said, well, we made a miniature as well, so we can burn that and make it look like it's the real deal. So when we went to shoot it, he says, well, just call us ahead of time when you're ready to shoot it. We'll come out. So I'll never forget that morning I called Anthony, our fire chief. I said, Anthony, I said, we want to shoot this today. I said that the shanty town, and we want you guys to also put it out with the hoses, with your fire gear on and all. I said, no problem. I said, so can you bring out one of the pumper trucks? And he says, yeah, you know what? We just finished cleaning the hook and ladder as well. You want us to bring that too? Production value, right? Oh my God,
Yeah.
Of course, that would be wonderful. And all his firefighters came out and worked on the film with us. It was just one of those films that everybody came together and made this happen, and it was so wonderful. And it was a lot of stuff we did at night, and it was pretty neat. That was probably one of my favorites to do. Yeah, and I learned a lot.
And then I also have another question.
Yeah.
What would you say that was like your best or your favorite the actor to produce the movie with of any type of movie that you ever produced?
As far as an actor that I work with, you mean?
Yes.
An actor working with that was in one of our projects. Oh boy.
One of your favorites.
One of my favorite actors.
Yes.
I work with-
that you worked.
I worked with Robert Forrester years ago.
Oh,
And you know who Robert Forrester? Yeah. And Robert Forrester, we worked on a film called Vigilante. It was one of the first films I actually worked on of a big film. And we got to become a really, really good man. And when he knew that I was going to Strasbourg too, he was like, he was a method actor. And I would say I think he was probably one of the ones that I really feel was really incredible to work with and learned a lot from. Trying to think who else. Berenger. I can't think of his first name. Worked with him. Berenger.
Tom Berenger?
Tom Berenger, yeah. Yeah, did a project with him once, and really, really cool guy, really good to work with. Some of the, you know what? Some of the magic shows I directed and scenes segments that I directed, Kenny Rogers, for instance.
Yes.
He, and I get to meet Garth Brooks on the first Kenny Rogers Christmas special.
Yeah.
And Garth Brooks wasn't even that famous yet. Oh, he was. I shouldn't say he was. He had a couple albums out, but he was. Now he's huge. But him and all the country western people, stars that I work with, and I work with a lot of them. Kenny Rogers and Garth Brooks were two of the most down-to-earth, nicest guys in the world. That out of everybody, I would say they were probably the best ever to work with. And Kenny Rogers, when we were done with the project, took us out to the steakhouse one night in Branson, Missouri, where we were shooting. And it was the best filet mignon I ever had in my life. And so I went to a place called Jocko's up in Santa Maria, which beat that one. But he just a gracious guy, give you a shirt off your back type of guy. And I would say, and David Allen Coe, Mickey Gilley, worked with those guys. Nicolette Larson, who is no longer with us, unfortunately. But all those country western people, just so down to earth, just incredible. Yeah. So
great questions. Great questions there. How about Natalie Oden?
Hello.
Hi, Natalie. How are you?
Good. How long have you worked for Inclusion Films?
So Inclusion Films, oh boy, I'm going on 12 years now total. And it's funny because Joey, started this whole project doing film camps. And he asked me the first year he was doing the film camps to come on board with him. And at the time I had another business. I was in the arcade business, and I was also directing shows, magic shows at the time as well, and consulting for television. Anytime you see magic on a TV show, they would hire me to be the consultant and to advise, magic advisor. So I was doing all that, and I'm really kind of busy, Joey. And then the second year I said, I really want you to just come on a couple of the camps and this and that. And I did. And I loved doing these film camps for special needs. I learned so much from them. I was able to teach them our art, but I also learned a lot from them as well. And I said, Joey, this is incredible. I love what you're doing. And then finally, the next year we did another camp, and then Dr. Clark, who was the director of the regional center, Kern Regional Center at the time, really wanted us to do a full-time program here. And that's when Joey said, look, I really need you to run this. And I love what I was doing. I sold my arcade business and my vending business to a guy that worked for me for many years. And then I just got on the saddle and said, okay, let's do it. Let's take the ride into the sunset. I love this. I love our community. I love, teaching them. I love the fact that we're getting them work in the business now. That's going to be his legacy, certainly. And of us, getting everyone work, getting them out in the workplace. And it's become a real love, a true love. And so it's been a good 12 years now, and I'm really happy. It's been a wonderful thing in my life, and the latter years of my life to take this. And I could never see retiring, and neither could Joey, because we love what we do too much. So.
Yeah.
Any other stunts, out of all the stunts that you've done, what's your most favorite stunt to do?
My most favorites, probably the aerial upside down. Not the underwater stuff. The underwater stuff, that was one that would really, the night before, would always make me really nervous. I couldn't sleep at night because you're underwater, and that was always one that really, it was put me on the edge a little bit. But yeah, probably the aerial, the upside down. I love heights, and it was not a problem for me and all that. And those I had ace down. When I was 14 years old, 15 years old, we used to practice in my buddy's yard in New Jersey. He had a big oak tree with a big branch that was about 50 feet off the ground. The branch, we would practice me hanging upside down from that branch for years.
Oh. So, and that branch is still there.
Which is still there. The old is still there, absolutely. So anyway, so,
Now, do
so
you
yeah, there are the
miss
stunts from-
do you miss doing stunts? Do you miss doing magic?
Not really, you know. I've kind of been there, done that, moved on. You know, been in a lot of businesses in my life. I was able to have the means from that business to put into other businesses, which was really nice. Because you know, one thing I got to know Harry Blackstone Jr. over the years before he passed, and got to know him very well and work with him a little bit. And one thing he always said, he says, "Remember, it's show business. The second word's bigger than the first. You got to make it a business. You got to feed your family, put a roof over your head always, right? A lot of people think it's the arts and, well, I'll just, you know, live from day to day and starve if I have to. But no, it's still a business. So that's one thing you always have to make sure you understand in the arts, to make sure you run it like a business, make sure your finances are good in that realm, and make sure you've got, you know, money coming in to live.
Yeah.
Very important. Never undersell yourself either. I'll tell you a little thing. When I was a Daredevil and doing my Daredevil act, and I was, you know, getting big stunts and getting paid very well at a young age, and I found out that one of my agents was booking me, and the agents would get at that time 10 to 15% whatever they booked you. So if they booked you for a $5,000 stunt, you know, they got 10% of that. So you had to, you know, be careful. So they would, you know, make themselves $500, right? So so bottom line is, oh God, what was I gonna say? So bottom line, I found out that he was booking a stunt for $7,000. So he was taking an extra. Not only was he taking $500 from me for the 10%, but he was getting another $2,000 put in his pocket that I didn't even know about. And when I found that out, I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to take over. I know how to promote myself. I know how to book myself. Then I started booking other escape artists and other magicians and things. I would manage them so they wouldn't get ripped off. So I found that was something, you know, again, it's running it like a business. You got to run it like a business.
Yeah. Good questions. Good. Thank you. Lanzarote record.
Hi Dale.
Hi, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. What's the first project you direct?
The first project, oh boy, that I directed? First project directed, wow. Oh boy. Well, I directed my own magic shows back in the day. And we used to do a thing when I was 15. We did a project for at Lincoln Center in New York City. In they have a big band shell next to the Metropolitan Opera House. And we had Con Edison, the power company, was our sponsor and it was through an organization called American Concern for Artistry and Craftsmen. And I had the show. They gave me the position of directing the show. So we directed my show and various other shows. And I was very young at the time. I was 15, and I said, okay, I can do this. And I did it, and it went well. So that was probably the first thing that I really, you know, directed. A lot was live shows. And although I got to go back to my fourth grade, when I was in fourth grade, I asked my teacher. I was really into Santa Claus, and I loved Christmas, still do. And I just, Santa Claus was like an idol to me. I loved the whole Santa Claus thing.
Yeah.
So I asked my teacher if I could direct a show called Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It was kind of based off the TV cartoon that would come out every year at Christmas time. And I put together a bunch of my buddies and a bunch of my classmates, and I directed this live show, and I was in fourth grade. So when you're in fourth grade, you're 10, I think. So that was the first thing I directed was that.
That's so fun. You know, in third grade, I played Frosty the Snowman.
Oh, really?
I got to melt on stage.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's priceless.
So it's funny, we both remember those little shows that we saw on TV. And
that's funny. That's wild. That's great, David.
that's wonderful.
Yes.
Did you have one more, Lanzarote?
Yes, I do.
Lanzarote.
What was your first magic trick you perform?
The first magic trick I performed, I'll never forget, was, and my mother, God rest my mother's soul, she loved this trick. was where you take a newspaper and you show all the pages of the newspaper, and then you tear it, and you begin to tear it all up in pieces. And then if you get all the pieces together, boom, it comes back together, and you show all the pages are the same. And that was my very first trick. And my mother, God rest her soul, like I said, she, every time family would come over, oh, do the paper trick, Dale, do the paper. But that was the very first trick I learned, and that I really, performed. There was a nickel trick when my uncle, my godfather actually, when I was a kid growing up, he used to do this trick with nickels, making these nickels disappear in this little brass little vase. And actually, that was probably the first trick I performed. But as far as for an audience, that newspaper was the first one.
I love that. I just realized, Nick, I didn't get your second question. Did you have a second one you wanted to ask?
I know Taft College is pretty. I know Taft College is pretty close to you, and they have a well-known independent living program. Have you ever worked with them?
Yes, I have, Nick. In fact, it's called the TIL program, and it's a wonderful, wonderful program. And you should think about checking it out. We know Susan, that's the director of that program. In fact, she brings some of her graduates here to our studio before they graduate for a tour, and we do a little film, show them some of the makings of our films here. And a lot of them then they transition from Taft College to our program, which is really kind of cool. But yes, it's an absolutely wonderful program. My assistant Tammy actually worked on that program for a little while, and Dr. Mike Clark, who was the former, who's the man that brought us here to Bakersfield, who was the former director of Kern Regional Center, he was the one that actually started that program years ago. And several of my students actually went through Taft College, and they are living independently today as a result of what they learned there. So it's a wonderful program. I can't say enough good things about it. It's great.
That's great.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I wanted to just do one last question, and I was going to throw this out to everybody. Maybe start with Natalie, and then we'll go down the line and end up with Dale. At this moment in your life, what brings you the most joy?
You're gonna make me cry.
Oh, yes, Natalie. Should we start with Natalie?
Me the question? Are you asking me that?
Well, what I'm thinking of is we'll start with Natalie, go through everybody, and have you as the.
Okay. Go ahead. Yep, Natalie, go ahead.
I love it.
So what's the question?
The question is, and this is for everyone, at this moment in your life, what brings you the most joy?
Oh, okay. This one's easy. Getting out of quarantine.
Oh, Natalie.
There you go. You said that, and I thought of, and get one of those filet mignons that you were talking about. Let's see. All right. How about Ashley? At this moment, what is your biggest joy? Sometimes it's just that, the stillness, isn't it? Quiet. It's gorgeous. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. How about De'Aaron?
What I'm thankful for.
The biggest joy, like at this moment, what is your biggest joy in life?
Is to speak with you guys, speak with you guys right now. This is my first time ever doing this, and I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
Well, our pleasure. And I tell you, that's you're so pinpointed. So far, everybody's so pinpointed because it's like being in the moment. You're so in the moment. You're right here, right now.
Yes.
How about Nick Broad?
Singing.
Nice. Any particular song?
All kinds of stuff.
Love
All kinds of stuff.
it. Lanzaron,
Yes, David.
at this moment in your life, your biggest joy, the thing that brings you the most joy.
Reading my Bible. And protect my family. And be safe. Wear masks all times.
I guess it's my turn, huh? Before Dale. My
Yes.
biggest joy in the moment. I'm there with De'Aaron. My biggest joy at this moment is being here with everybody here. Yes, Dale.
My biggest joy is seeing all you guys and teaching you something about our business. And if I can, teach you anything about the arts that we've been around our whole lives, and you can learn something from it, that's a big joy for me. That's my biggest joy at this moment, is being able to give you some of my knowledge is my biggest joy. And you guys and taking it, using it, that's my biggest joy at this moment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for being here. Oh, Natalie and
Thank you.
and Ashley and De'Aaron, thank you for joining us for the first time, and Nick and Lanzaron. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I tell you, everybody here is really an amazing performer, actor, singer, dancer, and model. So you never know what's coming up at Inclusion Films next.
That's right. That's right. There's a time we can certainly have you guys come up and audition for parts of some of the projects that we have coming up. Okay. We'll let David know, and David's always, we always pass it on to David first, and we'd love for that to happen. That'd be great. Okay, guys, keep up the good work, you guys. And you've got a wonderful teacher with David. Believe me, he's an incredible guy. So learn all that you can, and we hope to see you all again. And stay safe, okay?
You
Okay.
as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye, David. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.